Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of IMHChats, and today we have one more stellar here with us. She will be sharing her experiences about her professional journey. She has always been a very wonderful person, inspiring, empathetic, especially to junior researchers like us. She's our Cathie Sherrington. Welcome, Cathie.
Oh, thank you very much. You're very kind.
Cathie's, well, in brief, she's an HMRC Senior Research Fellow, and she leads the Physical Activity, Aging, Disability Research stream within Institute for Musculoskeletal Health. Would you like to share your life before you get into the research as such?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you like to?
Yeah, happy to. So, I have two, still teenage children. So one's nearly 20 and the other one's nearly 18. And that's a big part of my life at the moment, and a partner. And my younger daughter actually has a disability and does a lot of sport, and in fact went to the Paralympics. So that was very exciting. And so it's been really fantastic that I've been able to use that experience to inform some of my research, because I guess I've really seen firsthand the benefits of involvement in sport for people with disabilities.
Oh, that's really wonderful to know about that, Cathie. And I have definitely met your wonderful one girl, and looking forward to meet another super wonderful child again. How did you start off on your research career?
Mm-hmm. So I guess I started off being a physiotherapist, and I worked in mainly aged care and rehabilitation areas. And I guess I was most interested in those areas because I felt that physiotherapists could really make a big difference to people's lives.
Yep.
And so, I was sort of more interested, I guess, in working with people with kind of more severe problems. So people after stroke and amputation as well. I did a lot of work with people after amputations, as well as older people who'd had fractures and falls and things like that. But when I was at university, I became a bit interested in politics, and I was involved with student politics. But then when I was a junior physiotherapist, I actually did a little bit of an arts degree to learn a bit more about history and politics, and because we hadn't done much study of those things in the physiotherapy course at that time. But then after doing that for a bit, which I really enjoyed, I realised that perhaps I could go more in that direction, but with health. And so then I did a Masters of Public Health degree.
Okay.
And then I learnt, I actually then, through that degree, got into touch with someone who actually ended up being my PhD supervisor, Stephen Lord, who's at Neura. And he was actually teaching a statistics subject, which I really enjoyed, and used a data set about falls as an example. Yeah. And so I could see then that actually the area of falls and fractures was like a major public health issue, but it also used the physiotherapy skills and expertise. So I realised this was actually a way of combining, my interests in kind of equity and society and things more broadly with the physiotherapy expertise. So then I undertook a PhD. There was actually another part of the reason for doing a PhD in that my partner actually got a job overseas in Belgium. And so he was actually works for a trade union, and he was actually working for the International Trade Union Organisation in Belgium, the sort of peak body. But I actually wasn't able to work as a physiotherapist in Belgium because there was too many physios already there. And so that was actually the opportunity to then start a PhD, while I wasn't able to work. And so I followed on from the Masters of Public Health and did a PhD and looked at the area particularly of exercise after hip fracture. One other little piece of that puzzle, which is also a fortuitous situation, is that as part of the Masters of public health, there was actually a need to do a research project, a research component. And I'd actually applied for ethics approval to do a medical records audit, I think of people after amputation. But interestingly, someone from the ethics committee actually said, no, you can't do that. You need to develop an intervention instead, which is kind of, probably overstepping in terms of the ethics committee and the role of the ethics committee, but it actually was really good advice. And so then, as part of that Masters of Public Health research project, I actually then did my first trial, which was a trial of home exercise after hip fracture. So that, did give me a taste for kind of clinical research, and then which I then pursued, with the PhD.
Yeah, such an important work. It's commendable, Cathie. So thinking back when you were an early career researcher, so do you think there were any challenging points that you had? Obviously, I'm pretty sure. And how have you navigated that?
Well, I guess at that time, like as I said, my older daughter's now 20. I think it was less known that it was sort of possible to, combine work and family, and to really sort of own up to actually having family. It was sort of less common to talk about one's family at that time. And I actually knew that I wanted to work part-time when my children were younger. And so a lot of those sort of logistical issues probably kind of defined my early career. And I was very fortunate to have the support in that. And so I actually finished my PhD. I actually handed in my PhD the day before my first child was born. So, and there was, so we talked about it being a biological deadline. And there was quite a good story that on the day that I was actually printing it out. So it was actually the day that she was due. I was printing out the thesis, because, at that time you kind of went and you printed it out at the Research Institute. And so this was at NEURA. And a colleague of my supervisors kind of picked up a problem with one of my figures. Well, it wasn't really a problem. He just said, this could be a lot better, I'll help you do it. And I think it was actually the most assertive that I was throughout my whole PhD, when I'm there, literally 9 months pregnant. And I said, no, I'm not changing it. The figure's fine the way it is. And so then I said, we continued printing it out, and then I sort of took it off to the binders. So in those days, you sort of physically got the thesis bound, and there was a particular place which was about an hour's drive away that a lot of people used. And so I was literally, and you had to print out the 5 copies to get bound that you then handed in. So I was sort of carrying this box of my 5 copies of my thesis up this steep flight of stairs while being 9 months pregnant. But got it there, and then managed to have a few days off, and then I picked it up. So that was on the Tuesday, and I picked it up from the binders on the Friday and handed it in sort of physically at the University of New South Wales. And that was very exciting. They were very welcoming and suitably pleased for me, particularly being 9 months pregnant. And then she was actually started being born the next day. So
oh my God,
very
absolutely
exciting.
Amazing story. And then must be so much emotional for you. I mean, going through your physical as well as the professional big changes. Wow. I mean,
but I think it actually having both at once kind of made me accept both challenges kind of more easily, because it wasn't the only challenge that I was focusing on. And one of another colleague actually hadn't managed to achieve that, finishing it in time, and she'd actually was finishing her PhD when she had a 4-week-old baby, and I think that was really difficult, and I knew I didn't want to be in that situation. So that was quite a good motivator. And so then I actually took 6 months leave, and then during that time the thesis was marked, and then I was very fortunate to be able to come back and to actually work as a manager on a large NHMRC project. With my supervisor, and that I was able to do that part-time, so that actually worked really well. In retrospect, often one's career decisions are made for different reasons, but it actually was the perfect kind of ongoing training for a research career, because I got to understand about large grants and about reporting and
Yeah.
kind of managing projects and things like that. So I was very pleased to have that opportunity.
That's wonderful, Cathie.
And then the
Wow.
next step then was applying for a fellowship, and I actually had some
Okay.
challenges with that because
Okay.
the at that time the NHMRC it was a part-time postdoctoral fellowship, but when I started to apply for it, I need to be careful what I say here, but I was told by someone, very senior
Yep.
within the school, that research couldn't be done part-time. And so that, it was actually ridiculous that the NHMRC offered these part-time fellowships because, research couldn't be done part-time. And if you were serious about research, then you needed to be working full-time on it. Unfortunately, I think, that attitude, it was more common at that time, and people did sort of, feel the need to kind of make a choice.
Yeah. What are the key things that you think you've learned so far from your research journey, or the things that you could have done differently? Something which we could be taking tips from you, being such an experienced person. Yeah.
I think really resilience is the key thing, that I've learned,
Yeah.
because, in this job, there is a lot of failure, there's a lot of rejection, and we really do need to work out how to not take that personally and to keep getting up and trying again.
Absolutely.
So, which is much easier said than done. So, I still do, get disappointed or, frustrated. So I'm not saying I'm a perfect model of resilience, but I think that, I am pleased that overall, I have learned to not take it too personally and to sort of still, try again.
Yeah. We've been very lucky to get a mentor like you, because you've gone through that, and then you're still saying that you are still learning to be resilient. But the word resilient, to be resilient, coming from a person like you, really motivates us. Actually, it has got a very positive and a very strong impact that I have felt personally. So thank you for that.
That's very kind. Thank you. I think that's really important. I've seen a few things that senior people should be sharing their failures. Like we should be sharing our failures as much as our successes, because often we are celebrating the successful grant applications or the papers being published, but it's actually important to document the number of unsuccessful applications, or the number of times we've had that paper rejected before it's published. And I think there hasn't always been a culture of acknowledging that and celebrating the effort that goes into the unsuccessful attempts as well. So I didn't answer your second part in terms of what I wish I'd done better. I think as I've got older, I think I've become better at communicating and kind of being clear about what I need to happen, and what just sort of clear about expectations in situations, in dealing with staff, and also with collaborators as well. I think I previously wasn't so good at kind of clearly expressing and kind of having those difficult discussions about, well, who's going to be an author on this paper, and what order are the authors going to be, and what's these types of things. So as I've got older, I think I've got better at that, and have got better at articulating those sort of things at the beginning, and kind of being brave enough to raise those sort of awkward issues. I think actually being a parent helps you in terms of having difficult conversations and needing to be clear in instructions.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Well, you've already answered another question which I have thought of, like being a female, how difficult it is to manage your personal and professional life. So you've wonderfully answered that already. So my out of curiosity, I would want to ask you one query, that to what extent a person should be analyzing herself or himself, I mean to say the self-critic, how much it is important. I mean, sometimes you go beyond that certain point that you feel like a failure sometimes. So self-critic to certain extent is good, but if it is like going beyond that limit, you're just not productive at all. Is there any tip, Cathie?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, really insightful, your question there. I mean, I think we need to kind of be kind to ourselves and kind of realize that, we've done the best in a certain situation, that, if we've put a good effort in, and that, we can maybe think, well, maybe I could have done a better job for this in this way. Maybe I could have,
Yep.
spoken to this person, or I could have, written this differently, or I could
Yep.
have included this aspect.
Yep.
And I do actually have that about a recent unsuccessful major application.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's sort of genuinely things that I could have improved,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I've managed to not. So I guess that's
Yep.
the self-criticism in a kind of constructive way, because
Yep.
then I think I can look forward to improving on those things in future.
Yep.
But I think I have managed to make it to be kind enough to myself that I'm not sort of beating myself up about that, if that makes sense. That I'm
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thinking, well, I had some actually challenges in my life at that time, and really I did the best that I could in that situation, and it wasn't good enough this time, and also there's other factors at play.
Yep.
The grant review panels are not always
Yep.
entirely
Yeah.
objective, and people are coming from different perspectives. So
Yep.
so I
Yep.
guess so I guess that's my advice. Like it's fine to acknowledge where you could do better, but
Yep.
also to celebrate the effort, and to
Yep.
kind of forgive yourself for
Yep.
not doing better.
Yeah, such an important tip for everyone, I must say. Well, besides your research career, I'm quite aware of your running activities, your interest in physical activities, and the way you could motivate anybody, not only in our department. So, do you think these activities, like running activities, has an impact in your professional life as well?
Yeah, I think it does. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us know that we should be doing certain things, but I think a lot of us will still struggle to
Yeah.
fit them in. So I think that actually gives us good insight into what it's like for the general population, who actually often don't have our benefit of our understanding really of what the benefits are,
Yep.
and are perhaps in a more difficult financial situation, have like different constraints on their lives and things.
Yep.
So sometimes we discuss that in our team, like we we know all about it, but sometimes it's still difficult to implement. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it does give us insight, and does help inform different intervention strategies and approaches to helping people be more active.
Yeah, and obviously for your own health also, this is very important. Well, so what else do you hope to achieve in your professional life? For me, you're a stellar already, achieved so much, but I'm pretty sure there are some plans, future plans, which is like never ending for everybody of us. So do you have any specific plans in your professional career?
Yeah, I guess I'm keen to do more research that's actually implementing interventions in
Yeah.
real life settings, because like a number of my trials, we've actually kind of mirrored real life settings. So we actually are not running them within a usual health service,
Yeah.
and so we're using grant funds to sort of employ additional staff, and to
Yeah.
kind of have a parallel service that we're providing. And so often, we have certainly found that to be effective
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
different outcomes in different populations.
Yeah.
But really, the next step is to work out how to actually implement that into practice,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then use what we've learned about, research design and things to evaluate that rigorously. So
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do, really implementation research, not just implementing interventions, because
Yeah.
we really need to be testing the effectiveness in different settings, and
Yeah.
working out ways to do that in the messy real world.
Yeah, that's right. So something which I think a part of it was been discussed through your keynote presentation last
Hmm.
SID-MSK platform, and that was really wonderful. Especially when I was listening to you, then it really makes a great impact. You feel like, okay, my parents or my, whoever is like above 60 or 70, they need to be doing like this. So in real settings, yeah, that's such an important work. I would love to see more and more work from your side, Cathie. Well, what tips or take-home messages would you like to give it to junior researchers like me and us?
Well, one thing I think is to to be kind and be generous. Because it could be like a lot of people who you're interacting with now, in 10 or 20 years time when, you're running things, those people will probably be there as well. And so, it is important to sort of build positive relationships, with the people that you're working with. I think is really important because, the people, at your level, because you will be running things together in future, and so having those relationships and those connections is really helpful. But then it can also work the other way. So if people aren't always sufficiently kind and generous, then that can kind of damage future relationships as well. So I think that's sort of one tip. And I guess another thing is to really keep learning and to learn from sort of different fields. So a lot of the things that I've learned about implementation, a lot of that work is actually I've learned from people working in quite different fields. So I've been very impressed with people in Canada who are doing stuff in childcare centres and also in schools. And there's people in Australia, particularly in Newcastle, doing fantastic things with schools. And so a lot of that that sort of experience and that seeing people do things like that in other settings has really influenced my learning.
Oh wow, that's really great, and I'm very lucky to be in the environment of Institute for Musculoskeletal Health and exactly the culture that you have described, actually being kind and generous to people. Thank you so much, Cathie, for your time, your valuable time, I must say, and a wonderful insight regarding your professional journey, as well as the very important tips for juniors, not even juniors, I would say for everybody. Before I end, I would definitely want to thank my viewers and audience, and please do wait for another exciting episode of IMHChat with one more inspiring personality. So until then, bye from both of us. Bye, Cathie. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.